Released in 2009 on PC, EA, in collaboration with DICE, created a first-person action game with speed and parkour as its primary focus. This game was Mirror's Edge, and it released with great critical and fan reception. While I would like to go into everything I love about this game and why it deserves more play and hype than it got, that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Today, we're going to take a quick look at the art of Mirror's Edge, and why, in its simplicity, it's so memorable and distinct. Here it is, the city. Take it in. At first glance, it doesn't look like too much, just a bunch of white buildings in a fairly normal looking city with a few basic colors scattered around. That's kind of the point, this simplicity. Let's take a look at another scene. Again, we see the same thing, the blue sky, white buildings, but we see these bright basic colors again that seem to almost pop out at us. Mirror's Edge actually manages to do something with its art style that no one has really been able to replicate in a game since this one, or at least no one has tried. The surprising lack of color makes that which is left seem so much more important or interesting. The developers capture our interest by their impressive take on negative space. So then what is negative space? Well, for that, let's turn to my good old friend MS Paint. Let's say that I have a picture of a circle. That would make the circle the subject of my drawing, or the positive space. Negative space is basically the area around a subject. For example, in this beautiful work of art here, this circle is the subject, therefore the area around the circle is the negative space. Whatever part of your drawing is not supposed to be the subject, that is the negative space. Alright, that example kind of sucked. Well, take a look at this. This is called Rubens' vase. It's a classic optical illusion that's actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The subject of this drawing is the black vase, but as you can see in the space around the vase, the negative space also has an image in it, two faces looking at each other. And it doesn't just have to be black and white either. Here's a more realistic example, one that may actually help me prove my point with Mirror's Edge. Negative space can actually tell a story of its own apart from the subject. So let's take a look back at the city then. We see the buildings, the sky, and these various colors. The subject of the scene is the city, right? The setting of our story, so that would make the colors the negative space, right? Wrong. But why? Allow me to explain. For those of you who haven't played Mirror's Edge, the story takes place through the eyes of Faith, a runner. In short, runners are the few people who are willing to rise against the oppressive government, and most of their work revolves around delivering messages so that people can avoid using communications that can be tapped, such as phones or emails. We follow Faith as she investigates the murder of a mayoral candidate, a murder that her sister was framed for. Faith travels all across the city during the game, and while she traverses the land, we get a glimpse at the beautifully simple art that Mirror's Edge has to offer. Let's take a look at the tutorial section of the game, the first thing that we're introduced to. We can notice a few things off the bat. Obviously the same scenery that we're used to at this point in the video, tall white buildings with accents of simple colors. Now we can pay close attention to the text. Notice how they highlight the most important parts, the color, red. Even the menus, we see lots of this red. Now watch as we approach where we're supposed to go. Red. Obstacles that we need to get through it's all red. Slowly emerging as we run is this bright red, leading us without even saying a word. I mean, heck, our first contact and friend. Notice the color that she's wearing. It's red. It's clear at this point that the game wants us to notice this color, this basic red that stands out from the white and even the rest of the colors that the game shows us. I mean, even take a look at Faith's glove. It's red. I mean, the game is subtly telling us that red equals good, or at least that red is an important color for our character, maybe even runners in general. So what does this have to do with negative space? I hear you already asking me, but I promise I'm going to tie this all together, just stick with me. What's interesting is there's actually only 9 colors total used in this game. It's white, pink, red, orange, yellow, lime green, teal, blue, and black. With these few options, the game also has a great use of complementary colors, or colors directly across from each other on the color wheel. For instance, on a lot of the roofs of buildings, we see orange and blue used together, or lime green signs next to pink ones in some of the later buildings in the game. Mirror's Edge wants us to see those colors. They're supposed to stand out. They're supposed to be what we notice. They're supposed to grab our attention. With the red guiding us through the city and the other colors complementing that journey, we can clearly see that color is actually the subject of our image. On this vast canvas, we can now see that the negative space of our image is the city. It is a beautiful picture in and of itself, but the subject is the color. The simple yet carefully planned insertion of these colors grabs our focus and turns the city into a spectrum of hope for our runners as they journey across it. Now let's fast forward a minute to the City of Glass found in the reboot of our story, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, released in 2016 with pretty positive critical and player reviews. The futuristic setting is quite different from the city that we know and love from back in 2009. This city is busy with lots of cars, aircraft, signs, and scenery, and while it's very cool looking, it's almost too busy, at least for what we know as Mirror's Edge.
Missouri.
Catalyst brought many changes to the game, for instance creating an open world, which in theory was a great idea, but in practice ended up seeming a bit too repetitive at times. I don't know, just one man's opinion, I guess. One major difference from the original Mirror's Edge is the complexity of the scenery and the art. The City of Glass is beautiful, but not for the same reasons as the first game. Catalyst almost tries too hard to make an impression. We still have the simple colors like we did in the first game, with the addition of even more shades and colors, like violet for example. And we still have the theme of red for our runners, but there's an almost constant specific path the game is telling you to follow instead of simply highlighting important pieces and subtly guiding you along your way, though this path can be toggled off at times. The problem with Catalyst is the impression that it leaves is just one of, wow, this game looks really cool, but at the end of the day, the impression it leaves is often forgotten. We lost the negative space in favor of making the city itself the subject instead of the color. Creating a distinct art style is tough, and there aren't many games today that break the mold, but every once in a while a gem drops, and it's remembered for generations. If they ever make another Mirror's Edge game, I would love to see a return to the simplistic. I think the game shows that sometimes keeping it simple is better than trying to be the biggest and brightest. Don't get me wrong, Catalyst is a solid reboot with better movement and combat for sure, and I would definitely highly recommend both games to someone who's looking for a first-person experience that's different from all the other shooters out today. And both games hold up really well in my opinion, and they're both pretty cheap. Keep your eyes peeled for a legit review of the Mirror's Edge series and what my thoughts are gameplay-wise coming at some point in the future. And let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below. If you have anything else you want to add, I would love to hear it, but let's leave the negative space to the art professionals and keep the comments section a positive space, am I right? Okay, that was a terrible joke, sorry. If you want to see me overanalyze more video games for their art, music, story, and pretty much whatever else, then be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace.